Capital domination. But first, Brandy Chastain and the latest, greatest, worst plaque ever. I have a hypothesis.
Nice.
One dude doing all the sculpting, and it's always a self-portrait, and nobody's calling him out on it. That's what I think.
Whoa. Yeah. Oh, I don't know about that.
Woody's not in the Hall of Fame.
It's Around the Horn, the show of competitive banter.
Luck in it. Just yell it out.
Total skill.
Best receiver in the league.
92.
Best quarterback in Cleveland.
Okay, also LeBron, he had the easiest 44 ever, or maybe the slowest 44 ever. And the Baines play, greatest coach team of this generation, might have to learn how to shoot. It's 2-2. Credit to the Cavs or blame to the Celtics, Frank?
I'm putting this all on LeBron James. 25th time in his career, he's gone for at least 40 points in the playoffs. He's done it 6 times in this postseason. And remember, go back to Game 2. They got off to a great start. Then LeBron got hit in the head. They were up 11 at that time, and then things fell apart after he went to the locker room. So the problem with Boston, they keep falling behind big in the first quarter. They outscored Cleveland in the second, third, and fourth quarter. The first quarter is killing Boston.
Tim Cowlishaw?
I got to put a little on the Celtics. When you're a perfect 9-0 at home, but you get blown out on most of your road games, there's too much of a disparity there. They're a great defensive team at home. Why can't they come close to figuring out what to do to keep LeBron from just killing Terry Rozier when they go on the road? They seem to get it for a little while with Marcus Smart on him, but then they let down. It got to 9 points, but I don't think anybody, even in Boston, really thought they were competing in that game. As long as they keep winning at home, they'll go to the finals, but it's ridiculous to watch how they play on the road.
Woody Page?
Well, I'm going to put the blame on Brad Stevens. All the mouth breathers around the country are talking about, boy, he's the greatest coach since Red Auerbach in Boston, and yet what is he doing to actually adjust to LeBron James? And the first thing you start with is they're switching on every play. He is ending up on Rozier or somebody that he shouldn't be with, and he goes to the basket so easily. I think it's a case of, A, you got to fight through those screens, and B, fouling. When he's going to the basket during the playoffs, he's shooting 73%. Would you rather shooting him 100% of layups and dunks or 73% from the line? So throw in some of those scrubs and say just foul him. And when he comes down the court, you have a better chance of winning. But they're not adjusting whatsoever during the series.
All right, Clinton Yates, you're in Plasma 1. You're batting 4th here. Set him straight.
The problem is that, Woody, if you're going to do that, LeBron James has like 150 more points than any other player in the playoffs. So it's not really that effective. You've got to stop everybody else on that team. And in the case of Game 4, the one guy who did it was Kyle Korver, of all people. That guy is older than I am, and he came off the bench and had 14 points, and he had 3 blocks, and he's playing incredible defense. That's why I'm crediting the Cavs with this. They're managing to get the guys at home who are supposed to be better in that position to do things. Korver is one of them, and this night was a show of it as well.
Let's go back to you, Frank Isola. Do you think the Cavaliers have figured something out? And specifically, if they have, what is it?
I definitely think they have, and I think offensively, they have struggled at times throughout the playoffs. But, Clinton mentioned Kyle Korver, Tristan Thompson, George Hill. They were combined 16 of 26. And Woody's talking about, Terry Rozier being caught out on an island with LeBron. Terry Rozier was a +3 in this game. So you can do it one of two ways. You could switch or you can double LeBron. If you double LeBron, he's going to end up with 20 assists because he'll always find the open man. I actually don't have a problem with the way the Celtics are defending the best player in the league.
Tim Cowlishaw?
I don't know about those 20 assists that Frank's talking about. LeBron had 7.
Woody Page?
Well, what the Cavs have done is they've stepped up defensively, and I think the most important aspect of that, Al Horford, who I thought was the most valuable player in the last series, really has been taken out in the last couple of games and is not that much of a factor. You either get him into foul trouble or you get him out of position, out near the free throw line. I think that taking Horford out, then putting really a great deal of pressure on those two young guys that are on the wings have made a difference in this series.
Clinton Yates.
Horford's the most experienced player on this Boston team. He has to get more involved. But actually, at this point, I don't think they have much of a chance. I think the Cavs have figured it out to a point where the Celtics are close.
Not much of a chance. So the team that hasn't lost at home all postseason has no chance going back home here.
Hey, I'm in L.A. Series is over. Shouts to Plaschke.
I solely want to respond to that.
Well, I do think Boston has been very good at home, but here's the problem. 1-6 now on the road. They look like an inexperienced team when they go on the road, and that's why everybody says, oh, they don't need Kyrie Irving. Games like last night, you need a special player. You need someone like Kyrie Irving that could maybe erupt for about 7 or 8 minutes and get you in the game. They don't have that
They
player.
look like an inexperienced team because they kind of are. They're a young team. And speaking of looking inexperienced, Aaron Baines had the basketball right in front of the basket with nobody behind him, and he didn't even know what to do. He was called out for getting dunked on earlier in the game by Joel Embiid. That's got to be more embarrassed than getting dunked on right there. I mean, the entire bench was unsure of what was going on. We're going to move on. Capital domination.
Not playing anymore.
What did you tweet, Tim, last night? That Washington wanted it more? Yeah, you did.
Yes.
Okay. That's not getting you any points on this show. Now the most harsh thing in sports. You play and finally win the most important game in your franchise's last 20 years, Game 6 at home, to demonstrate you're not a choking dog of your familial line. And now it means nothing because you have to go on and win the next game. Clinton, what did the Capitals show you last night? What does it mean?
They showed me a lot of grit in this skate. What I liked about it is that when they were up late, they managed to stay on top of the going. And look, Game 7 at this point for a Capitals team, I think, shows you that this season has been a relative success. They got past the stage.
See, and I'm going to stop you right there. You're going to come back in, but I have to stop you right there. Because I've read this in the Washington Post, I've read this elsewhere online, that all I needed was that win at home in Game 6. I'm fine as a Capitals fan. That's what I'm hearing. That can't possibly moral victories, and there are no moral victories.
Incorrect. They can still win the game, Tony, and that's the point. I think at this stage you're happy with the way this season has turned out to this point.
All right, well, let's discuss that then. Woody Page, is it already a success for the Capitals because they won a Game 6 at home?
Oh, sure. Apparently, I heard from someone else this morning. They've gotten this far. Wow, that's great. Well, then get a participation banner. Raise that up to the top of the arena.
That's what
are you talking about? Anything less than winning the Stanley Cup and everybody in...
Important. That injury in Garbaggio time in Game 3 looms large. And Game 4 tonight, Rockets-Warriors. What does Iguodala being questionable mean for tonight and mean for the series, Clinton?
I think it matters a lot for the Warriors from a psychological standpoint, being without their fifth starter. Listen, Steve Kerr calls this guy the adult in the room for a reason. He paces the attitude of that squad. He had the best assist-to-turnover ratio in the league last year, which leads me to believe the Rockets probably think they've got a little extra edge in this game.
So you think it's psychological, which sounds like you're saying it's a moral victory. There are no moral victories, Clinton Yates. How about you, Woody Page?
I'm selling that there. Yes.
The man's got the stats to back it up. Wow, Woody Page is just seeing the ball very well today. How about you, Tim Kalishaw?
I would say this. If he doesn't play or if he's limited, there's a small impact. I mean, you're coming off a 41-point game, so you think, okay, nothing's going to make a difference. But we know these games get going one direction, and the score gets out of hand. Houston's not 41 points worse. Iguodala is an important guy, and the Warriors have a very limited bench because Kerr doesn't want to play his big men in this series.
Frank Isola.
Well, it's big from this standpoint. He was a Finals MVP. He's third on the team in this playoffs with a plus 59 in 331 minutes. But need I remind you, Steph Curry missed the first 6 playoff games for Golden State. They went 5-1 in those games. So if they could survive without Curry, they could survive without Andre Iguodala.
And the Looney defensive efficiency stat you bring up, Woody, but Looney's playing against the second line of the opposition, not what Iguodala's playing against primarily. Well, that's just is the truth of it. D'Antoni says the pressure's on Golden State tonight. Do you believe that, Frank?
No, not at all. I mean, Golden State has won 16 straight home games. That's in the playoffs. That's an NBA record. Houston has to win on the road at some point, and you're coming off a 41-point loss, the pressure's on you.
Clinton, how about you?
Yeah, the pressure's on them for reasons that are bigger than just the Rockets. If Draymond is going to be talking about how they're looking past every single opponent and they're the ones that are the best team of their generation and all this dynasty stuff, yeah, you better blow somebody out big time if we're supposed to believe you all are that great.
All right, pick it and we'll move on. Who you got tonight? Everybody just yell it out. I'm here for you guys.
Golden State.
Warriors.
It sounded like you guys were a symphony. We'll move on. Buy or sell 2, homering on the first pitch of your first at bat, of your first career start. As a 19-year-old, after starting the year in A-ball, Juan Soto's hello world moment. What does it mean, Woody Page?
Well, he had a better premiere than Han Solo is going to have this on what we've seen out of him in the minors.
Cal, the show?
I'm questioning the Han Solo comparison.
Agreed.
And I also think, this is not something the Nationals wanted to do. You don't want to get a guy who's very...
How about you, Isola?
Nah, you look all over baseball. There's young players everywhere getting it done. This guy had 14 home runs in 39 minor league games. And Washington is a win-now team. What I love, 3 promotions for him in 27 days. That breaks Clinton Yates' record of 2 promotions in 35 days at ESPN.
All right, Clinton, this is your account in the Washington Nationals.
You know I love a good Oppo Taco, but for reasons that have to do with the roster itself, hate the fact that Howie Kendrick is the guy who had to go down. Veteran bat you had on the team. Sure, he was an infielder. Sure, he was an outfielder that you plugged in different spots, but he was important. And Howie Kendrick going down is the reason they had to do this. It was desperate, but I think it was necessary, and it provided a great moment for their Dominican Academy. If you haven't seen that, go look it up. Very fun time watching those kids react.
That's great. Now, that video is great. But from a Soto perspective, is he the real deal? What do you hear?
I believe so. Listen, that bat is hot, and if you've got a guy coming up that quickly who is unafraid to jump on a guy, not only goes Oppo on a lefty from the left-handed batter's box. Whoa, from a hitting standpoint, love it.
We'll move on. Buy or sell 3. Aaron Donald, no show at the Rams, voluntary OTA. Tom Brady, Gronk, not at the Patriots. Le'Veon Bell, he's not giving the Steelers any extra. And Julio Jones not volunteering for the Falcons. What does it all mean, Tim?
And the one that's got to bother you is the Aaron Donald one. Here the Rams are coming off kind of a magical, surprising season. They brought in all these new Ndamukong Suh, these veteran cornerbacks. You think they're going to have the greatest defense in the world? Get Aaron Donald his new contract. No reason that hasn't been done yet.
Isola?
I don't know. I mean, the Patriots got rid of Jimmy Garoppolo. I understand Tom Brady's been doing it forever. But to me, he should be in camp. And the reason that he keeps giving this offseason was about my family. You haven't played since the first Sunday in February. You've had 3 months off.
But in New England, Tom Brady, this seems to me like a statement absence for considering what happened in the offseason, one of the most tumultuous of his career.
Woody Page.
Frank, I believe that students are out of school now, not back in school. It's summertime, maybe in New York, but it's
New England.
Voluntary practice. It's voluntary practice. These guys know how to play football. They don't need to show up. If it's supposed to be, it's not like showing up for an around the horn conference call. Because that's voluntary. We have some of the guys here that don't show up on a regular basis, but this is voluntary.
Woody, what are you doing? Who is that at? I wonder.
New England.
Let's see who's blinking in plasma 3.
You know what I'm talking about.
Clinton Yates. Slap. Synchronized dive. Straight red for Zlatan. Did he deserve it, Frank?
You stomp on Zlatan, Zlatan will slap you. Of course it's a straight red. It's a straight red in Europe. It has to be a straight red in the MLS. He should respect the league a little bit more than that. He knows what's coming.
Oh, Frank, he's here for 5 weeks, and you want to suspend him for a game or two, kick him out? This guy is the new player. He is the best player in the league. That's a head slap from...
And getting friend-zoned. What will he remember longer, the win or the denial, Woody Page?
Oh, he's going to remember the win forever because it's going to make him play in all the major tournaments. He won't have to qualify for the next 2 years. He's a kid. She'll kiss him, I'm sure, at home.
There's an old saying that Woody Page should know. Act like you've been there before. He had never been there before. He's 21 years old. You know what? 3, 4, 5, 6 years, if he keeps winning these tournaments, he'll get the embrace right. I'm going to give him a pass for that one. He'll remember the win.
Woody Page mounting the comeback.
Oh, boy.
And we have time for one more. We've waited all show for it. Let's go. The all-time busts. Ronaldo, Maradona, Andy Murray, RG3 with Subway Meats, Brady and Court. And now Brandy Chastain, San Francisco Bay Area Sports Hall of Fame plaque. Oh, Frank Isola, where is it on the fail meter?
I mean, it looks like George Halas. If you're doing Brandy Chastain, you have to have the sports bra, her celebrating one of the most iconic moments in women's sports, the goal against China to win the World Cup. Not
Frank.
Head, come on.
I mean, it's artwork. It's not supposed to be a likeness. It's supposed to be a representation. I mean, have you ever painted in your life or done stuff?
Woody.
No.
You just went the other way to oppose Frank, and you walked into a wall. Frank, you're absolutely right. The most iconic image of any human on the planet is Brandy Chastain doing that. That's the one you got to do. Take the face off.
All right. While the trend is to go young in the front office with all these tech geeks and stat geeks, guess what the Islanders are doing? They're going old school, real old school. They just hired 75-year-old Lou Lamoriello, who all he did with the Devils led them to 3 Stanley Cups, 5 conference championships. He's now going to run their team. By the way, Lou Lamoriello, a long time ago, Providence AD, hired Rick Pitino as his head coach. So he knows what he's doing in basketball and hockey. The big thing will be John Tavares. July 1st, the Islanders' best player becomes a free agent. So Lou Lamoriello, good hire by the Islanders.
Another Lou Lamoriello FaceTime from Frank Isola.
That's my